Hello everyone, nice to meet you again. Actually, this lecture is the last time. Today's lecture is chapter 10, the Developing a Global Management Cadre. Cadre means it's very core people, core leaders in a company. Today's chapter learning goals are to emphasize the critical role of expatriate in managing and host subsidiaries and in transferring knowledge to and from host operations. Second is to acknowledge the importance of international assignment in developing top managers with global experience and perspectives. Third, want to recognize the need to design programs for the careful preparation, adaptation, and repatriation of the expatriate and any accompanying family, as well as programs for career management and retention. Next learning goal is to become familiar with the use of global management teams to coordinate cross-border business. Fifth one is to recognize the varying roles of women around the world in international management. Lastly, is to understand the variations in host country labor relations systems and impact on the manager's job and effectiveness. As the opening profile, the expatriate life. Most companies with global business transactions want to their top employees to have overseas experience. At Procter & Gamble Company, 39 of the 44 global offices have had an international assignment, and 22 were born outside the United States. In many circumstances, the adventure, which started out with many concerns, turns out to be one that the expatriates and their families do not want to end. According to the global relocation survey, 26% of expatriates opted to continue their overseas assignments when the original term ends. Here are what is like to take an assignment abroad. Would you like to be an expatriate? Is it an adventure or a hardship? Experiences of those who have done a stint abroad are mixed. Experiences vary by job type, and especially by location. It's the important issues for the expatriate life. What are essentials of international human resource management? Here are to maximize long-term retention and use of international cadre through career management to develop a top management team with global experience. Second is to develop effective global management teams. Third one is to understand, value, and promote the role of women in international management to maximize those underutilized resources. Last is to work with the host country labor relations systems to help implementation and employee productivity. There are another important issues for expatriate career management. They are preparation, adaptation, and repatriation, and the law of the expatriate spouse, and expatriate retention. Next. The ability to develop global management team depends largely on the success of expatriate assignment, which is turn depend on the ability to manage transitions for the expatriate and accompanying family members. Effective management of a country's global cadre does not end with the overseas assignment. It ends with successful repatriation. Proactive management should begin with the end of the current assignment in mind. Unfortunately, many companies do little to minimize the effects of reverse culture shock or plan for repatriation once an assignment is over. It is unsurprising then that United States employees company see overseas assignments negative career moves. If managers lose out on promotion opportunities while overseas, few will be willing to take foreign assignment. Reverse culture shock occurs because the integration is difficult. Expatriates are often out of sight, out of mind. And feelings of alienation from home. Poor management expatriates mean fewer will be willing to take assignment. What are elements of successful repatriation programs? There are mentor program, career planning and guidance units, and a system for maintaining contact with expatriates. Companies need to make the foreign assignment and reintegration process positive by using careful career planning, providing support to those overseas, and using the increased experience skills of returnees to the benefit of the home office. Research by Tong indicates that successful repatriation programs should use one or more of the following practices. First is a mentor program to monitor the expatriate career path while abroad and upon repatriation. Second is as an alternative to the mentor program, the establishment of a special organization unit for the purposes of career planning and continuing guidance for the expatriate. Third one is a system for supplying information and maintaining contact with the expatriate so that he or she may continue to feel a part of the home headquarters organization. Next. What is the role of expatriate spouse? Often the spouse of an expatriate also is a corporate fast tracker, but few companies effectively address the needs of the spouse, as evidenced by this statistic from the 2005 Global Relocation Trend Survey. Yet increasingly, by this statistic, If the spouse cannot find the position in the assignment location, the expatriate may turn down the assignment. It also is estimated that in 2000 year, about 25% of accompanying spouse were male. Research suggests adjustment by spouses is more likely. When firms seek the spouse's opinion about the international assignment and the expected standard of living. Secondly, when the spouse initiates his or her own pre-departure training. The overall transition process experienced by a company's international management cadre over time comprises three phases of transition and adjustment that must be managed. The first phase is exit from the home country, the success of which is largely determined by the quality of preparation the expatriate has received. The second phase is entry into the host culture, which is also comprised of entry, adjustment, and exit. The success of this second phase depends largely on monitoring and support. The final phase is re-entry into the home country or entry into a new host country, in which the level of reverse culture shock and the ease of reculturation will depend on the previous stages of preparation and support. Next. No one can better look out for one's interests than oneself. Expatriates must ask themselves and their superiors what role each overseas stint will play in career advancement and what proactive role each will play in one's own career. However, unless the company is effective at managing the careers of successful expatriates, it may lose valuable employees. Carefully managing the careers of expatriates can help a company retain people with increasing global experience and skills. The global relocation trend survey finds several reasons for high expatriate turnover rates. There are three reasons. Expatriates are highly remarkable and receive more attractive offers from other employers. Overseas compensation packages are more generous than those at home. And expatriates feel unappreciated at home and on assignment. What is the role of repatriation in developing a global cadre? Successful returning expatriates have developed knowledge and skills that are highly useful to their companies. For instance, Professor Adler suggests skills include first is managerial skills, not technical skills. Learning how to deal with a wide range of people to adapt to their cultures through compromise and not to be a dictator. Second is tolerance for ambiguity. Making decisions with less information and more uncertainty about the process and the outcome. Third, the ability to work with and manage others, learning patience and tolerance, realizing that managers abroad are in the minority among local people, learning to communicate more with others and empathize with them. In addition, expatriates learn how to do business overseas and about new technology, local marketing, and competitive information. Companies must position themselves to benefit from the enhanced knowledge expatriate managers develop. If a company cannot retain good returning managers, then its potential shared knowledge is not only lost but also conveyed to other companies that hire them. Some companies are learning to use technology to utilize shared knowledge to develop their global management cadre to better serve customers and store their managers' knowledge and expertise. For example, here, Booz, Allen, and Hamilton has instituted a knowledge online, KOL, intranet as a means to enhance knowledge sharing among employees and improve client services. The intranet links islands of information separated by geography and platform-specific applications, thereby enabling 2,000 consultants to collect and share their vested thoughts and expertise. Black and Gregson research identified several best practices for retaining expatriate talent when making international assignment. These include focusing on knowledge creation, leadership development, to use assignees with high technical and cross-cultural skills, and to have a deliberate repatriation process. Next. Global management teams is for effects of multinational teams. Global management teams are collections of managers in or from several countries who must rely on group collaboration if each member is to experience optimum success and goal achievement. The role and importance of international teams increase as the firm progresses in the scope of international activity. In domestic firms, the effects of multinational teams are limited to internal operation and some external contracts. In international firms that export products and produce some goods overseas, multicultural teams and cultural diversity play important roles between buyers, sellers, and other at the boundary of the organization. For multinational firms, the role again becomes internal with teams consisting of culturally diverse managers and technical people who are located around the world and are also working together within subsidiaries. Okay, next are operational challenges for global virtual teams. What are the virtual teams' challenges? There are geographic disposal. It means the complexity of scheduling communications across multiple time zones, holidays, and so on. And cultural differences makes variation in attitude and expectations. And language and communication problems are translation difficulties, variations in accents, semantics, and so on. In technology, variation in availability, speed, acceptability, and so on. These are virtual teams' challenges. Next. Professor Rosen, Forst and Blackburn conducted a study of 414 training and development professionals. The respondent indicated which training programs for virtual teams were most needed in the future. The top 5 needs are shown in this slide. Future needs are how to lead a virtual team meeting, how to coach and mentor virtually, how to monitor team progress, and how to use communication technologies, and how to manage team boundaries. This is a future need for virtual teams. What are the tasks for global business teams? Here are 5 tasks. Cultivating trust among members, overcoming communication barriers, aligning goals of individual team members, obtaining clarity regarding team objectives, ensuring that the team possesses necessary knowledge and skills. There are management techniques to deal with the cross-cultural collaboration challenges. To draw upon individual tolerance and self-control, and try and error processes coupled with personal relationships, and setting up transnational cultures. There are challenges. The research continues to show that women are disproportionately underrepresented in expatriate assignments. Opportunities for indigenous female employees to move up the managerial ladder depend on the given culture. For example, in Japan, the workplace traditionally has been male-dominated, with the working woman representing a loss of faith to her husband. Increased global competitiveness has brought some changes, with more than 60% of Japanese women now employed. However, Japanese women still represent only 8.9% of managerial workers. There are typical examples. Pepsi, the CEO is Indra Nooyi, woman CEO. And head of Barclays Bank, Soa Nashat, is the Middle East woman CEO. What is the role of women in international management? Here are some roles of women and international management. Women are increasingly making their way into the international management category. Next is different opportunities for women may reflect the cultural expectation of the host countries. For example, in Spain and Italy, top board rooms remain almost exclusively male. Women occupy 22% of board seats in Norway and 20% in Sweden. North American women working as expatriate managers in countries around the world showed that they are, for most part, successful. Women and minorities represent a significant resource for overseas assignments, whether as expatriate or as host country nationals. Japanese labor economists and others argued that Japan will struggle to compete economically as long as women are sidelined from the career track. Evidence suggests Japan's traditional attitude toward women in the workplace truly does have domestic consequences. It truly does have economic bad consequences. Despite recommendation by a governmental advisory panel to fill 30% of management positions with women by 2020, there is still a great deal of resistance to women in the workplace, both in the government and the population. Let's see, for example, here in Japan, women in international management. By tradition, women are hired primarily for clerical tasks and tea serving. They are known as office ladies. In Korea, office flowers. Could expanding women's roles help end Japan's 13-year economic slump? Women's lack of participation may shave 0.6% of annual growth. Average profits are higher in companies comprised of 40 to 50% women. Population decline could cause huge labor shortages. Women are often illegally dismissed for pregnancy. Government officials complaining declining birth rates are due to the over-education of women. Women say the problem is lack of daycare and very long working hours. It's the hard issues. The role of women in international management in Japan. There is working within local labor relations systems, the impact of unions on business, organized labor around the world, the convergence versus divergence in labor systems, adapting to local industrial relations system, the NAFTA and the labor relations in Mexico, the working systems of local labor relations. What is the impact of unions on business? The team labor relations refers to the process through which managers and workers determine their workplace relationships. The process may be through verbal agreement or through the union's written labor contract, which has been reached through collective bargaining between workers and managers. The labor contract determines workers' rights regarding pay, benefits, job duties, firing procedures, retirement, layoffs, and etc. As an example of these constraints, European businesses continue to be undermined by their poor labor relations and by inflexible regulations. As a result, businesses move jobs overseas to cut labor costs. In turn, unions refuse to grant any concessions in employment protection and benefits to keep jobs at home. The situation may be beginning to change some, though. Here are the impacts summary of unions on business. The percentage of union members in industrialized countries has declined over the last decade, particularly in Europe, though it does remain quite high overall, especially in Italy and the United Kingdom. There are several reasons for this decline: the increase in white-collar and service workers, the rising proportion of part-time and temporary workers, offshoring of jobs, and the reduced belief in unions by young workers. Traditional union structures in Western industrialized society have been industrial unions, representing all employees in a specific industry, and craft unions based on certain occupational skills. More recently, the structure has been conglomerate unions, which cut across industries, and general unions, which are open to most employees within a country. In the United States, most unions are national and represent specific groups of workers. Alternatively, in Japan, it is common for a union to represent all workers in a company. Labor systems. The merger of two of the world's largest labor unions to lobby for common labor standard in multinational companies confirms movement towards convergence. In the International Federation of Free Trade Unions, ICFTU, represent 215 national groups in developed economies. The World Confederation of Labor, WCL, represent 144 groups in Europe and Africa. Other forces for convergence exist as well. MNCs often seek consistency and coordination among their foreign subsidiaries, thereby exporting new forms of industrial relations practiced around the world. Similarly, there are many organizations who are monitoring labor conditions worldwide. For example, ICFTU, WCL, the International Labor Organization. These organizations provide labor unions and firms with information about differences in labor conditions around the world. Political and cultural shifts also play a role, as like global competitiveness, new market economies, free trade zones, and technological standardization. Despite the forces for convergence, for the most part, multinational corporations still adapt their practices largely to the traditions of national industrial relations systems, with considerable pressures to do so. Political ideology and the overall social structure and history of industrial practice are strong forces for localized approach to labor relations. Divergence in labor systems, most of multinational corporations still adapt practice to national traditions. The role of political ideology, overall social structure, the history of industrial practices makes divergence in labor systems. How to adapt to local industrial relation systems. Considerable pressure for multinational companies to adapt their practices largely to the tradition of national industrial relations systems. Multinational companies are subject to local and country regulations and practices. Considerable gap exists between the labor laws and the enforcement of those laws, in particular in less and less developed countries. Although about 40% of Mexico's total workforce is unionized, 40% of Mexico's total workforce is unionized. Government control over union activity is strong, and the union control over members remains weak. By law, multinational companies are required to hire Mexican nationals for at least 90% of their workforce, with preference for union personnel. In reality, though, the government allows exceptions. The Mexican government wants to continue to attract foreign firms, and many Mexican workers believe that multinational companies exert inappropriate pressure on unions and the union members and organizers. For example, General Electric has been accused of firing employees involved in organizing a campaign for the authentic labor front and of blacklisting union activists. Labor relations in Germany is a good example. Co-determination refers to the participation of labor in the management of a firm. German law mandates representation for unions and salaried employees on the supervisory board of all companies with more than 2,000 employees and work councils of employees at every work site. The works councils play an active role in hiring, firing, training, and reassignment during times of reorganization and change. Their role is so extensive, they are often described as co-managers of the internal labor market. This situation has important implications for how managers of multinational corporations plan to operate in Germany. Under pressure from global competition, German unions have incurred large membership losses in the last decade. As a result, they are more willing to make concessions and trade flexibility for increased job security. For example, when German engineering group Linde decided to build a factory in East Germany to take advantage of low wages there, IG Metall company decided to match the savings by allowing longer working hours and taking rest pay. Linde decided not to move to East Germany. Another influence is the German model, which holds that competition should be based on factors other than cost. That is, the higher wage level in Germany should be offset by higher value goods, which have been the hallmark of Germany's products. To the extent that German unions have established the high wage, high skill, high value added pattern, so have the established dependency on it. Consequently, German auto firms are in the process of moving toward the Japanese model by reducing supplies and cutting costs to compete on global scale. Conflicting opinions over the value of co-determination are increasingly evident. A major concern is that companies will be discouraged from doing business in Germany or with German companies if they have to incorporate co-determination. Thank you for joining my online class. I'll see you in MIU campus. Thank you very much. Okay, see you. Bye.